Hello everyone, I am John Paul Daliova from the SIT NS2A, and in this video tutorial I'm going to show you how you are going to implement the 4 RAID volumes in your Windows Server. So let's start. So before we boot up our Windows Server 2008 is just go to the settings first, and on the settings click the storage, and we're going to create 10 hard disks for our RAID volumes. 2 hard disks for the RAID strip, 2 hard disks for the RAID mirrored, and 3 hard disks for the RAID span, and 3 hard disks for our RAID 5. So in the control SATA, just add some hard disks, and we're going to create some, and just click the VDI virtual disk image next, and let's pre-allocate its full sizes. So I'm going to limit my disk size to 50 MB. Same with the other hard disks. So that's my hard disks 1. Let's create 9 more. So once you're done creating your hard disks, let's boot up our Windows Server. But once again, before we boot up, let's attach these hard disks to our Windows Server by double clicking or attaching it to the other window, which is the Windows Server settings. So I'm just going to double click my hard disks in this panel. Then after you attach all of your hard disk, just click OK. Then start booting up your Windows Server. So once you're done booting up your Windows Server 2008, let's now set up our RAID volumes. So for us to do that, just go to the start, go to the administrative tools, and click the server manager. So inside the server manager, go to the storage, and inside go to the disk management. So in the disk management, this is where we're going to set up our RAID volumes. So as you can see in the initialize disk panel, we have all of our hard disks that we recently created. So make sure that all of the checkboxes are checked and click OK. So let's set up first our RAID strip, which is the RAID 0 volume, and go to its properties, and let's create the new strip volume. So here, just click next, and let's attach to our RAID, to our disk 1, our disk 2 hard disk. So let's add, then click next, and our volume label will be going to RAID 0, which is the RAID strip. Just click next and finish. Just click yes on this or read it if you want. So next is we're going to create the RAID mirrored. Since the disk 2 has been occupied for the RAID strip, we're going to jump to the hard disk 3. So on the hard disk 3, we're going to create a new mirrored volume. Then click next, and we're going to add the disk 4. Next, and for our volume label will be RAID 1 mirrored. Just click yes once again, And next, we're going to create the RAID volume for the span. So I'm going to jump to the disk 5 and configure to the new volume of span, and I'm going to select disk 6 and disk 7 for this RAID volume. Just click next. Next, then for our volume name, this will be going to RAID 3 span. Next, then click finish. So for our last RAID volume, we'll be going to the RAID 5. So for our RAID 5, our allocated hard disk for that RAID volume will be going to disk 8, disk 9, and disk 10. So I'm going to right click the disk 8 and create a RAID 5 volume. Then next, and we're going to add the two remaining ones, or the two remaining hard disks for our RAID 5. Then click next. Next, for our volume label, we're going to be RAID 5. Just click next and finish. Yes. So that's how you're going to set up our RAID volumes. So now we're going to test some measurements to what will happen if we offline one of the disks of each RAID volume on its disk. So in our activity, so in this question number 1, so after we're going to copy and paste some files to all our RAID volumes, then answer the following. So we're going to test the number 1. So after paste the files, offline one disk of each RAID volume. So is the file still accessible? And we're going to explain why is it accessible. So first, we're going to copy and paste some files inside our RAID volumes. So I'm just going to paste my file services files, which is the C programs and etc. So you can test it on other files if you want. I'm just doing this on my file services. So I'm just going to copy these files and paste it on my RAID volumes. So after pasting all of the files, we're going to test, and we're going to offline one of the hard disks of each RAID volumes if all of the files that we've recently copied inside our RAID volumes is still accessible. So I'm going to offline my disks 1 for the RAID span, I mean RAID strip, and I'm going to offline my disk 3 for the RAID mirror. I'm going to offline the RAID 5, disk 5 for my RAID span, and I'm going to offline my hard disk 8 for the RAID 5. So let us now check if our RAID volumes are still accessible. So by doing that, let's go to the computer, and as you can see, the RAID mirrored and RAID 5 are the only RAID volumes that are remaining. So why is that? So in the RAID volume strip is when you offline one disk in a RAID strip volume, the volume loses access to the data on that disk, which can result in data loss or corruption. In a RAID strip volume, data is split across multiple disks, so losing one disk means that some of the data is missing. which can render the entire volume, or the entire volume will be unusable. Next volume is our span volume. So if you offline one disk in a span volume, the data on that disk becomes unavailable, which can result in data loss or corruption. If the offline disk is at the beginning of the volume, the entire volume may become inaccessible. If the offline disk is at the end of the volume, the rest of the volume may remain accessible, but the data on that offline disk will be lost. So for the RAID mirrored, in a mirrored RAID volume, data is mirrored across the two disks, which means that each disk contains a duplicate copy of the data. So when you offline one disk, the other disk still contains all the data, and the system can continue to access the data without any interruption. So for our last RAID volume, which is RAID 5, so when you offline one disk in a RAID 5 volume, the system can still access its data and use the parity information to reconstruct the data on the offline disk. However, the volume will be in a degraded state, which means that if another disk fails or is offline while the first disk is still offline, there is a possibility that loss of data will happen. So we're going to test our next test measurement, which is what will happen if we online the disk of each RAID volume once again and shut down the Windows server. And after that, we're going to remove one disk of each RAID in the storage settings. So then we're going to power up the server again, and we're going to see what will happen to each RAID volumes. So let's test that. Or on our server manager, I'm just going to make sure that all our RAID volumes are in a healthy status. So I'm going to online this once again. So if the RAID volumes are in a state of failed redundancy, just click the disk where it has warning and deactivate disk. So now all of our RAID volumes are in a healthy status. Next is we're going to shut down our Windows server to test the next test measurement. So for our next measurement is we're going to online the disk, and we're going to remove one disk for our each RAID volumes. So let's just wait to shut down our Windows server. So once your Windows server has been shut down, just go to its settings, and we're going to offline, or we're going to remove one of the attachment on each RAID volumes. So on the storage, on my RAID strip, I'm going to remove the disk 1. On my RAID mirrored, I'm going to remove the disk 3. And on my RAID span, I'm going to remove the disk 5. And on my RAID 5, I'm going to remove the hard disk 8. So after doing that, just click OK. Let's start. So after booting up your Windows server, now we're going to see on what will happen after we've just finished attaching our hard disks on each of our RAID volumes. So let's check. Let's go to our start button and click the computer. So as you can see, the RAID mirrored and RAID 5 are still remaining after we detach one of our hard disks on our every RAID volumes. So why is that? And here's why. So on my strip RAID, after removing one disk will cause the volume to become degraded and may result in data loss. The volume will need to be rebuilt when the missing disk is replaced. So in the case of the span RAID, on removing one disk may cause the volume to become partially or completely inaccessible, and any data on the missing disks will be lost and the volume will need to be rebuilt when the missing disk is replaced. So next, for the condition of the RAID mirrored, removing one disk will not cause data loss, but the volume will be in a degraded state, because the missing disks will need to be replaced to restore full redundancy and protection. On the case of the RAID 5, removing one disk will not cause data loss, but the volume will be in a degraded state, and the missing disk will need to be replaced to restore full redundancy and protection. Same with the RAID mirrored. So let's check if we can still access all of the files of RAID mirrored and RAID 5. So as we can see, the files are still attached in the RAID mirrored volume, and the RAID same with the RAID 5 mirrored volume. So this is how it ends. So thank you for watching.